Hello, no kako. This is Kenson again, coming to you from the beautiful but fire-scorched island of Maui. Again, if you came from part one, welcome back. And if not, welcome anyway. We are going to discuss the Maui fires. And we're going to go, in this video, we're going to go down the rabbit hole. I hope you understand what this means. You've seen the Alice in Wonderland cartoon, because once you go down the rabbit hole, strange and weird things, are seen and heard, because sometimes you need to think outside the box if you're going to find out things. The authorities will give you this box, and they will say the answer is in the box, and you look in the box, and it doesn't satisfy you. You know a lot of the circumstances, and you say what's in this box doesn't really answer the questions we have, and so you have to think outside the box, and that's what we're going to do for this part. Now, in the first part, we ended up by talking about the causes of the fire, and we went through the HECO as a possible cause, the Hawaiian Electric Company. We looked at the accidents, it's possible, and then we looked at arsonists, and that's certainly possible. But then now the conspiracists, the government will say, by the way, this word about conspiracy, it's something that the government has created, because it started after the JFK assassination, where people began to talk about having more than one gunman, more than Oswald. And so the government began to label these people who came with alternate explanations for the assassination. They called them conspiracists. And so it's in a way to discredit them. And so today it's often used to discredit theories and ideas that don't fit what the government wants to, put forward. And so this is outside the box, what I'm going to be sharing here. But I'm going to show you, get a bigger box, the bigger box is what the Bible is saying. And it'll fit inside that box, as you're going to see. So anyway, let's get to it. And so here's the fourth cause of the fires in Lahaina. It is that Lahaina's fire was a planned demolition. Okay, this is kind of shocking. You might think that this could even happen, but we've seen, of course, buildings. Before you build a new thing, you blow up the old one, right? When the cable things came in, the cable television, there is a channel, the HGTV, home development or home improvement kind of station, and I enjoyed watching these shows. You had this old house, or this old interior, and then these guys come in, this whole crew, they pull out their sledgehammers and they just start whacking away, what looks like a perfectly good home, and they just demolish the inside of it, and then they turn it into this totally different, modern, you know, amazing interior. That's called demolition. Well, they do that with whole buildings. Is it possible that they would do it with entire towns or even entire cities? Why would they do that? To build a better town, a better city. We're going to look at that towards the end, because it's prophetic. And the people that hold to this view will point to this as their method of getting there. It's the directed energy weapon, or DEW, DO, okay? Directed energy weapon. And these are very advanced weapons that can cause a lot of destruction from a distance. Okay? And a lot of people are saying that Lahaina was a victim of this thing, the directed energy weapon. And what causes conspiracy theories is that the explanation that is given doesn't seem to fit the circumstances, of what has happened. And so the people tend to think that can't be it. It's got to be something else. And then they come up with other explanations. And so in the first cause, I said it was the one that proposed was Hawaiian Electric Company. But now Hawaiian Electric Company says the power wasn't on for at least 6 hours when the fires in the afternoon started. Of course, the argument is that there was a fire that was still going on under the ground, you know. And you know Smokey the Bear, right? He says when you put out a campfire, you don't just, put it out. You keep dousing it with buckets of water over and over until you know the fire is out. And I'm assuming the firefighters did that with their trucks and their fire units. In fact, I forgot to mention about the problem that they ran out of water. You remember that? The firefighters said that when they were fighting the fires that they ran out of water. And I showed you in fact, let me go back up to that thing. I missed it in my first part. I showed you the water treatment facility that feeds Lahaina. I showed you that the water comes from two wells and the surface water from the stream that we bring down in a pipe, and then we push it up this cliff. Basically, it's about 150, maybe even 200 feet high. I'm not sure. I've stood at the bottom here many times looking up, and it's high. And so the water is pushed up here, pumped up here, and then it goes to our facilities to fill up the 3 million gallon tank. Now, what happens if the electricity goes out? See, that's the problem. And so Hiko is saying the electricity went out because of the falling power lines, and they turned off the electricity for the danger, because of the danger of the lines. And so if the electricity goes out, the pumps don't work, and the pump to pump it up here doesn't work. The pump to get it down into through these microfiltration units won't be operating, and they can't fill the tank. They fighting the fire, they drain this tank, and that might explain, I'm not sure if that's what happened, but that might explain why there was no water, So maybe that explains why the firefighters couldn't fight the fires anymore, especially in the afternoon. So anyway, so the question is, what caused the fire then, right? You could see that it was started in the community right below the bypass. You could see that was the initial destruction area. So what caused the fire? Well, this is the answer they give: the directed energy weapon, or DO. Now, this one of the reasons that these conspiracists, I call them conspiracists, but oftentimes they are proven to be right. But I'll call them that because that's what the media is calling them, and even the government might be calling them. But the things that they point to is that in January of this year in Maui, they had a conference held in the west side of all places on smart city. You might have heard about smart cities. They're trying to convert everybody into a smart city so that you don't have to use fossil fuel so much, and they want all the houses to be carbon neutral. So we're not giving off carbon dioxide and burning up fossil fuel. They're trying to take away the gas stoves, gas heaters, etc. Everybody on electricity, which is going to be produced through renewable energy, the sun and the wind, which honestly, it will be a hard sell because those things are at best inconsistent. The winds die out, the clouds cover the sun, and you need the fossil fuel generators, or whichever way you generate it, to cover the slack in the power grid. But anyway, they're trying to turn everybody into these smart cities that are, um, fossil fuel free. So here we have our governor. This is another thing they'll point to, speaking at a United Nations conference. I believe it was in early July. In fact, uh, he was he was not in Hawaii when the fires took place, and I think he was maybe up here or doing something on the mainland. But here he is at the United Nations conference where they talked about being smart cities or being fossil free, climate change issues. And the first reason that he gave for the Maui fire had to do with climate change. He's not the only one that has said that. Others have come forward and said, yeah, it's climate change That's why the fires occurred. I don't see the connection myself because we've had hurricanes from time immemorial. So I'm not seeing the connection between climate change and the fires. They're trying to show that maybe because there are a lack of trees or something, that there weren't enough things to thwart the fire. Well, maybe, because I showed you in the 200 years ago, there were a lot of trees in Lahaina and a lot of canals and water going through there that might have thwarted it. Sure. So maybe the climate didn't change, but the use of the water things did. So that might have contributed to it. That should be considered, yes. But this thing right here, this Maui fire bombshell, the governor of Hawaii signed an executive order in July this year, which is the month before the fire, that gives him the authority to take away land from the people of Hawaii in the event that the government needs to do rezoning there. Now, the reason he did this was because Hawaii has a housing shortage. And so he wanted a faster way to build homes. And that was the reason given here. But it was a very expansive order that he gave, in that he can actually override historic buildings and the laws that govern rebuilding historic areas. And so he can turn it into maybe housing areas, things like that. It was a very expansive executive order. And I showed you the Hawaiians that were, mourning for their loss. And this is the kind of things that cause them to grieve. And they're afraid now that the state is going to take away their lands, even as the plantation owners did in 1893 with the overthrow. Okay. In fact, again, let's go back to this picture, the main picture right here. I showed you that we have the federal government represented, we have the state government, and the county. Now, of these three, which one has the money? Yeah, this one right here. This is the money, this is the money man. Okay? And which one has the power? Well, actually, all three, but these guys have a lot of power. The governor here, the state, has a lot of power. He just passed the executive order. The county basically will work with both of these other more powerful entities. So when you have the money and you have the power, that's how you effect change. And that's why people are cautious and they're afraid. And the Hawaiians, especially, are afraid that they're going to lose more of their land. And so let's go back to what we're discussing here. And so they point to this, that this shows that the fire was a controlled demolition, that it was something that was planned because they wanted to take over the land and they're going to change it into what? Into a smart city. And there's been talk even years ago that Lahaina should become a smart city. Okay? So could it be that they destroyed Lahaina because of that? It's hard to imagine because people died. It's hard to imagine that a government would do that. People died, but this might go beyond the federal government. Maybe this is something that the United Nations has been ordering, or even something that the World Economic Forum, Klaus Schwab, has been ordering. You will own nothing but be happy. And so this kind of environmental thing and smart city goes all the way up, not just to the White House, but it goes way beyond that to the WEF or the United Nations. And so we have a large, powerful, rich, movement that is pushing us to this thing right here. And their religion is the climate change, the environmental issue. And so this thing is moving ahead, whether you like it or not, whether you agree with it or not. And then the last thing I wanted to point out that caused people to open up their eyes is that this book appeared, Fire and Fury. And the author seems to change regularly. Here is milestones, but most people seem to think this was made by AI, artificial intelligence. But this book, it says here, and let me look close here, it says the story of the 2023 Maui fire and its implications for climate change. People that have read this book said this book basically is a manifesto for the climate change movement. And it has chapters and portions in it of the Maui fire. Which Maui fire? The Lahaina fire that just happened. And what makes it amazing is it was published in August 10th and put up for sale on Amazon's website. Okay. I noticed here that they rated it 0. I guess these people don't, the ratings, they didn't believe in what this book was saying. But how can this book, 2 days after the fire, appear on Amazon? Strange, huh? It kind of smells like there is a plan behind this thing, that people kind of knew about this fire. Maybe they caused the fire. I don't know. And that's where the conspiracy thoughts come in. But you cannot blame them because all of these circumstances. Now, is there any evidence at the fire that this could be true, that this was a planned demolition, controlled demolition? Well, I've been watching the videos of Eric West. He's a real estate agent. His channel on YouTube is Hawaii Real Estate, and I used to watch him even before the fire. He would ride around Kaanapali or Launiapoko and areas where they have these $1 million homes. My home is basic, simple house. My home is about almost 50 years old now, and we're the old house, the ones that the locals built. But he goes to these millionaire homes, and I just enjoy watching. It's kind of fun, like window shopping. And Eric West is a believer, and he loves the Lord, and he takes you through these homes. But then after the fire, he started putting up videos going through the town of Lahaina after the fire. I don't know how he got in there, but he would go in there and show what's going on in the town. But then he put up this video right here, and I'm only taking stills because this video was taken down, and it had to do with evidence of directed energy weapon question mark. Is this evidence for a directed energy weapon? And he showed these two cars. There's another car behind this one in the foreground where you see the aluminum rims melted, caused this river of aluminum that came down the slope here. And then he showed the windows, the glass had melted. The significance of this is that aluminum and the glass melts at 1200 or higher degrees Fahrenheit, very, very hot. Okay? And then you see here not just the aluminum, but the tire itself melted, and only the steel cords that strengthen the tire are left. Okay? They mentioned even the calipers on the brakes seem to have burned off. But then the funniest part was there was an animal that was inside the engine compartment, and that animal unfortunately seemed to have disappeared. They could smell him, the burnt flesh, but only his fur was left. Okay? Now, what could cause this? Was it a directed energy weapon, like a laser or something like that's more than regular weapons, that fire, bullets or cannon shells? Well, that's one. And then another video that was posted by another real estate agent, and his name was Jesse Wald. He works with Maui Exclusive Real Estate. And in his video, I took this still because this kind of opened my eyes. That here was a car similarly burnt, and destroyed. Now, I'm not sure who put this water bottle on the trunk. I'm assuming this was put after the fire because it's still intact. But what struck me was this shopping cart. You have steel carts and you have plastic carts nowadays. This cart is plastic. If you look at the way it's built, it has, of course, a steel frame, but this part here is all plastic. But it's not melted. It doesn't look right that this car is burning at temperatures that would melt glass. And you can see here the aluminum rims, and this one melted as well. But it couldn't melt this cart that's sitting only about 2 to 3 feet next to it. But here you have on this truck, on the side of this truck, you have this paint peeling off from the heat. Was it caused by the heat of the fire of the car? If it could peel paint off this truck, why couldn't it have melted the plastic on this cart? And that's where I bring you to the probably the most significant evidence that a directed energy weapon was used. And it's brought by this man, Robert Brame. He calls himself a forensic arborist. An arborist, of course, is someone who is an expert in trees and the health of trees. He calls himself a forensic arborist because he has investigated 38 California wildfires. The causes. He's looking at the causes. And he noticed that some of these California fires are odd. And he saw the same oddity in the Maui fire because he says the Maui fire exhibits all the characteristics of a microwave fire. Okay? A fire caused by microwave, not by lightning, not by a match, not by a errant campfire gone astray, but it's caused by microwaves that heats up certain items and doesn't heat up other items. And you can tell that by looking at what gets burned and how hot the temperature of the fire is. So this thing, microwave fires, are described as some kind of military program that incinerates houses but leaves trees standing, that burns water-loving trees from the inside, leaving their needles and leaves intact, that burns hot enough to melt glass, and I should add aluminum, which natural firestorms cannot do. That burn rubber tires with metal rims, but not plastics. And you go back to this picture again. It burns metal rims, like aluminum rims especially, but not plastic. How can that possibly be? Well, maybe it's a microwave fire. So he's saying, what is this microwave? Well, microwave, in terms of military use, let me get this picture in the front, is a directed energy weapon. Okay? There are 2 directed energy weapon locations in our country, one in Kirkland, New Mexico, and look at that, another one in Maui. And this picture right here shows you the facility on Maui. It's on the summit of Haleakala, the mountain that rises up in my backyard. I can get up here in 1 hour by car. But you can see the Air Force facility up there. I'm not sure if this is the Air Force observatory. This might be the large solar observatory. But here you can see the laser beam that it's shooting up. But what these telescopes' main job is to detect near Earth asteroids, the ones that are gonna cause extinction level events. If you watch the movie Deep Impact, that's what they're looking for, these asteroids. The other thing that they look for are all the satellites that are orbiting the Earth, and to keep track of every single one of them. And now with this AFL, let me take that picture and make it disappear here. AFL stands for Air Force Research Labs. What they're studying, and I took this off of their website. I hope I can bring it up. Oh, nope. Here is their mission. Is the Air Force Research Laboratory leads the discovery, development, and integration of affordable war-fighting technologies for our air, space, and cyber force. Air Force, Space Force, and Cyber Force. And they're there to protect the American facilities and the structures and satellites and other things from enemy attack, basically. And so, of course, one way is through laser, but another way is through microwaves, because microwaves has been used as a weapon. And one story we hear about is in Havana, the Cubans were using it against the U.S. Embassy, and they're shooting a very directed focused beam of microwaves towards the American embassy and causing injury to a lot of the American diplomats. Some of them had to go home because of that. So you can actually focus the microwave and target it at certain places. The Chinese are developing microwave, equipped satellites so they can shoot down the American satellites, and that's why these guys are trying to counter that by having their own microwave uh, enabled satellites to shoot down the Chinese satellites that are trying to shoot down the Americans. And this escalation of weapons, it gets crazy, and they're going to kill us all, basically. And that's why Jesus, if he doesn't come back, like Jesus says, when the Son of Man returns, will he find faith? And Jesus said that God is going to shorten this time of tribulation, lest everybody get killed, basically. I'm paraphrasing. We have escalated, improved our war fighting technologies to the point that we can kill everybody on the earth 100 times over. And we're still improving them. So that's what this directed energy weapon thing is all about. And could it cause a fire? Absolutely, because in one research I was reading, these directed energy beams of microwaves are 100,000 times more powerful than the ones you heat up your leftovers in your kitchen, in your microwave. And so if you put an aluminum foil in your home microwave, it'll start to spark and stuff. But if you target it with one of these microwave, directed energy beams, it'll melt it, because the heat that it generates will melt the aluminum. And what happens is that wherever you have these metal pieces within a building, it'll cause that building to catch on fire. And so that's why you see the cars, these cars especially, all burned. Now I wonder if this peeling paint was caused by the fire from this car, or whether a microwave beam was being aimed at this car, and some of the edges of that beam just hit the edge of this truck. Maybe that's what caused this thing to melt. But the plastic cart, it wasn't affected at all. Why? Maybe because of the microwave directed energy beam. And that's why people are beginning to think, hey, this thing might be true. Maybe Lahaina was a planned demolition, a controlled demolition, so that they can rebuild Lahaina as a smart city. And that's the question that the people are asking. Now, let me go take you about a couple of years ago, when I was sitting in the traffic in Kahului. I had gone down there. I forget what I was doing down there, but as I was sitting at the traffic light, a thought just came into my head. I wasn't thinking about anything, but then this thought came into my head unexpectedly. It said, Kenson, do you see all these cars? Soon you won't be seeing them on the road. Okay? And I thought, wow, where did that thought come from? The Lord sometimes, not often, but sometimes he speaks to me and he tells me something, and I'm not sure if it's me or where did the thought come from. I share in some of my videos that on my trip back from the mission field, my final flight back, when I had packed up all of our things, and I had gone down to Australia to take uh, people from Papua New Guinea, Christians, to a conference, and then I said goodbye to them. I'm going to leave for good. I'm going finish is the way we say it. And then I jumped on a plane in Sydney and I began flying up the east coast of Australia. And looking down, I just felt despondent, because I thought I'll never be a missionary again. I'll never be able to do that because I can't raise the support. And that's the reason why we had to go home. And so I thought, there's no way I can be a missionary. And that was my dream to do. And after 6 years in PNG, that was the best thing in my life. But the thought came into my head, and it said just like this. It said, Kenson, you will teach people all over the world. And I thought, where did that thought come from? That was back in 1985. I didn't think of that. I wouldn't have ever thought of that. And so I questioned and I said, there's no way I can teach people all over the world. I can't even raise enough support. and the thought came back, Kenson, you are going to teach people all over the world. And in that video, I tell the story of how about 6 years later, I was planting a church, and then I went to this special uh, meeting with the YWAM group, and the speaker there, after his talk, he came up to me and he put his hand on my head and he said, you are going to teach people all over the world. He didn't know me from anybody. And I thought, wow, how did he know that? I mean, not that he knew that, but how did he say the same thing that I heard on the plane that God put in my heart? Now, there's other times God spoke to me, and I don't say I'm a prophet, but he does speak to me sometimes. And when he told this to me, I told him, I can't see how that's going to happen. I knew he meant the gasoline cars. That's what I knew that. Well, how are they going to get rid of these gasoline cars? And here we come to the smart city, because in the smart city, they will do away with fossil fuel cars and appliances and the use of these things to keep down the emission of carbon dioxide and hydrogen, you know, um, the what do you call that, like global warming gases. You know, they want to keep that to a minimum, and that's what these smart cities are meant to do, because their motto is ESG, and you probably know what that stands for. First one is environment, and that's where the gasoline cars are gone. The next one is social, and that's where the acceptance of many of the social things that are going on in the West will try to be spread around the world. The acceptance of the LGBTQ and on. And governance, G, is the compliance of all the citizens to the government dictates. So ESG is what's going to run smart cities. Okay? And they're going to do it by Revelation 13. They're going to put a mark on everybody to digitize everything. I'm not against technology. I like digital things. I like the internet. Great way to get the gospel out. I've put my website on the internet, BibleStudyCD.com. In fact, I had a website back in the 1990s when the internet first started, because I could see it as a way to get discipleship materials out. I'm going to put a link in the description below so you can see my materials, all free, all downloadable. You can use them for your own ministry. You can send them to people on the other side of the world. It's all free, and people can begin discipling people. Thousands of people are doing it now with the material. So please go down there, look at it, get to my website, and let's fulfill the Great Commission, because Jesus is coming really soon. But the government is going to get in, and they're going to control what we know, what we can do, by controlling what we can buy and what we can sell, and even whether we can even leave our house. Because if we don't have the right number of medical procedures, etc., not going to say the word, but they might restrict us to our homes. And you know what I'm talking about. And that's what smart cities are going to do. So even though this technology and the digital things sound good, what are smart cities really? And what they are basically is this: they're gilded cages, beautiful to look at, beautiful in operation. They work. But what are they meant to do? It's to control whatever is put inside. You keep the bird inside, he can't fly around your house. Why? Because he's in a cage. And they're going to put us all in cages with these smart cities. We can only do and plan and think whatever they decide we can do or plan or think. So I began to realize that if they turn Lahaina into a smart city and Maui into a smart island, we're going to be in this cage too. Yeah. This is what's going to happen to Maui. We're going to. It's like the walls are going to close in, and the options, the liberties that we experience now are going to be less. Not only Maui, but the goal is to put the entire world in one of these gilded cages in the name of saving the environment. Okay? In the name of that, we're going to all be trapped in here. And we got to follow the government. We've got to accept the social values, and we're going to have to do all things to save the environment. ESG. Now, when Barack Obama was president, his chief of staff, Rahm Emanuel, took this phrase from a Stanford economist, and he made it their motto. He made it their mode of operation in a way. A crisis is a terrible thing to waste. And the Maui fires is really, they're going to use it as a thing to catapult their their movement towards this thing right here. What is this? This is basically the beast system, Revelation chapter 13. The Maui fires is like a beginning of the fulfillment of Bible prophecy. Revelation 13, of putting everybody in this gilded cage. And when the Lord told me about the cars, that is part of this thing as well. And he was just giving me a 2-year head start, an advance warning of what was coming to Maui. We're going to see that happen soon. It's happening on my island. It's going to happen to your city, your town, your state, our country, and their goal is the entire world. I don't think it's going to reach the entire world because there's going to be countries that push back. But we're seeing, and it's kind of exciting that its prophecies and revelation are being fulfilled in our midst. And I have front row seats to seeing how this thing is going to work out. It's terrible, but it's amazing to see Revelation 13 coming to pass. What does that mean? It means Jesus is coming back soon, because I've read the book and I've read the closing chapters, and I know how this story ends. And in the end, the king returns, and he don't make smart cities. He makes holy cities, and he's going to reform the entire world, and he's going to transform it back to the Garden of Eden, and he's going to bring about his righteousness, and that's going to truly be the smartest city. Is going to be the city of God, and that's going to be our home forever and ever, where we will be with our Lord forever. Amen. Amen. With that, I say aloha no. God loves you. Ma'ala mopona. You take care. Amen.